This is Carmen Jimenez reading Ode to People Who Hate Me. Ode to People Who Hate Me. I hate being hated, even though I provoke it, not by committing major wrongs like murder, more like a regular pattern of being selfish or forgetful, which is another word for selfish. If you hate me, trust me, I know. In fact, I have a ledger of people like you who hate me, and I rifle through it every morning, obsessing over the names more than they think about mine, a passing thought, a microsecond of dislike, or worse, indifference, like the Godzilla rays of fire I feel buzz out of your eyes when you scroll past my pictures on Instagram. I should focus on the people who love me. Every therapist I ever had has told me so, but I don't need them to love me more, so that's pointless. If we hate each other, I assure you my hate has a trace of love with a dash of hope. It's the throbbing contradiction of hate's dark thrall. About this poem. I wrote this poem after my usual feelings of ambivalence I get from Instagram, to think about why it makes me feel melancholy, but also to consider how hate is an affect with great hegemonic currency despite being a very layered feeling. What do we want from the people we hate, or that we believe hate us? I think it's all passionate. Hating is an enormous amount of labor. Thinking about being hated is too. I hope it speaks to other Instagram ambivalence.
In part 2 of the Jimmy Webb concert review, we take a look at the 5th through 8th songs the former Inland Empire resident performed at the Coach House in San Juan Capistrano, California. The 5th song performed was Do What You Gotta Do, a composition that Webb wrote when he was only 16 years old. In November 1967, it was released as a single by fellow Inland Empire resident Al Wilson. The recording reached number 39 on the Billboard R&B Top 100 chart. In 1968, it was recorded by both Bobby Vee and Nina Simone. Bobby's single was released in August and Nina's in October. Both reached number 83 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Nina Simone's 1968 recording of Do What You Gotta Do was heavily sampled in Kanye West's 2016 release, Famous. The song referenced a 2009 incident when West interrupted Taylor Swift's acceptance speech at an MTV Video Music Awards ceremony. About the song, Webb said, "Apart from the fact that Kanye West is saying some pretty repugnant things about Taylor Swift, this was basically my song with a lot of rapping over the top. I have to tell you, I was quite upset." It turns out that West had not asked for permission to sample the song. Webb's publisher eventually negotiated a settlement with West, whereby 45% of the song's publishing rights would go to Webb. As for the Taylor Swift lyrical controversy, Webb, probably realizing that there was little he could do about it, said, "Well, Taylor's a big girl now. She could probably take care of herself, and I took the money." The sixth song performed was The Worst That Could Happen. The Worst That Could Happen was first recorded by the Fifth Dimension as part of their late 1967 LP, The Magic Garden. The LP was an epic concept album documenting the beginning and the end of a love affair. Webb arranged and conducted the recording. He also composed all but one of the 12 songs. The story told on the album was inspired by the on-again, off-again relationship between Webb and his Colton High girlfriend, Susie Horton. Much of Webb's early work was directly inspired by Horton, but more on that later. The album's chart performance was considered disappointing because it only reached number 105 in the Billboard Top Pop Album chart. A little over a year later, The Worst That Could Happen was given new life when it was covered by New York vocal group The Brooklyn Bridge. It was released in December 1968, rising to the number 3 position on Billboard's Hot 100 chart in February 1969. After the success of the Brooklyn Bridge's version, Soul City Records reissued the Fifth Dimension's Magic Garden as The Worst That Could Happen, attempting to cash in on the tune's second chance popularity. The seventh song performed was The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. As a youth, Jimmy Webb was an avid reader of science fiction novels. One book was Robert A. Heinlein's 1966 book, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. Webb wanted to use the book title for one of his compositions. He tried contacting the author to get permission. Through his attorney, Heinlein told Webb that he had no objections to its use. UK singer Joe Cocker was the first to record the song. It appeared on his 1974 album, I Can Stand a Little Rain. Judy Collins also recorded the song, and it appeared on her 1975 album, Judith. Before he sang the tune at the Coach House, Webb called Collins the godmother of lost and forlorn songs, because she has a knack for taking material that's been overlooked and recreating it in her own special way. The song was also featured on Linda Ronstadt's 1982 LP, Get Closer, and on Joan Baez's 1987 album, Recently. Like Webb, Baez was also a former Inland Empire resident. In the 1950s, she lived in Redlands, while her father was a professor at the University of Redlands. The eighth song that Webb played was All I Know. The composition was at the bottom of a pile of tunes that Webb intended to present to Art Garfunkel. The singer was looking for his first solo single to record after the breakup of Simon and Garfunkel. Webb hesitated to offer it to Garfunkel because, as he explained, it was about a girl who was the biggest liar that I ever met in my life. The girl in question was Miss World 1961, Rosemary Franklin, who Webb was briefly involved with. In 1964, she had a bit part as a showgirl in the Beatles movie A Hard Day's Night. Webb remembered Art Garfunkel looking at his producer, Roy Halley, and saying, "I think we can make a hit out of that, don't you, Roy?" The recording was released in August of 1973. By November, it was a smash hit, reaching the number 9 position on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. It was number 1 on the Billboard Adult Contemporary chart and stayed there for 4 weeks. The record was to become Garfunkel's highest charting solo single. In part 3 of the Jimmy Webb concert review, the final 4 songs he performed at the Coach House.
Hello, welcome everybody to an edition of what we call Brown Box. I'm your host, Ryan Harsh.
And I'm Chris LeRoy.
Hi, everyone. And on Brown Box, we bring in some of our favorite albums and discuss them. Simple as that. We put them in a box that's brown. So that's hence the name Brown Box.
That's
right?
a very clever title.
Thank you.
Given the construct.
It's actually, the box is very familiar to some of you that watch our other segment called Dylan Box. It might be the same box. It might not be.
It should be turned backwards.
But I digress. So we're gonna look at we brought in one album each. We're gonna talk about them. Very different, but you know it really kind of reflects our tastes and what we're into. So Chris, why don't you reach in the old brown box there and pull out the old brown shoe?
Okay, well, a good guess,
Hey.
possibly, almost.
Oh my, and
This
sealed.
Is, this is
Oh,
sealed.
okay.
This is brand new. It's like from Target. Or
Okay,
something.
yeah, that's where I got mine.
Yeah. This is an album some people may know.
Mm-hmm.
It's by the band called the Beatles.
Uh-huh.
It's called Let It Be. And the reason I'm picking this for a brown box is that there's been such a resurgence about the Beatles because of the Get Back documentary. There's folks who really, really loved that series and where it led. And you really did get to see an album that seemed impossible in the first third of that film.
Oh yeah.
It seems like there's nothing. There is nothing.
The only one holding it together is Ringo.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay.
Yeah, and I can do Ringo.
Yeah.
From Get Back.
Right. Very bored.
There you go. He's just kind of waiting.
Yeah.
But yeah, he keeps it rolling, and it just seems so impossible for them to have any product when it's said and done. When you're watching these sessions, and everything seems so slapdash and poorly done, and like all the animosity and all these other stories that go around. And it isn't till the very end of the third segment that you see some of these songs pulling together, and then you have this rooftop, amazing.
Oh yeah.
Now that you see it in total,
Very cool.
this amazing culmination of what it means to be a band, what it means to like each other, what it means to be creative together,
and kind of rediscover why they're doing what they do,
and find kind of what they were trying to get back to in a way. But it makes you go back to this album, of which everyone has Let It Be, and it's, for many people, it's probably one of the lesser Beatle efforts. And it really is unfair because does any album have a whole documentary to set it up? But there's something amazing about this album in context of the documentary. So too,
okay.
that on the Lo-Fi Lounge, we're going to do the very last will and testament of the Get Back
The last word, final word.
Final word.
Okay.
Because everyone's already got a chance to save their stuff, 3 months ago, and so we're going to do our own thing. But
Okay.
what comes from this music, and why this is a great brown box piece, is it would be a great album if you hadn't watched the documentary to listen to, and see where it fits in your Beatle canon. I don't know if there's someone who wouldn't have heard this album, but there might be. If you listen to this album and then go watch that documentary and flip it the other way around,
Right.
because there's some beautiful songs. There are Two of Us, Across the Universe. Even I always I had a place in my heart for One After 909.
Oh, yeah.
Some of my friends were saying, well, it's just the Beatles. It sounds like this old beat up song.
Yeah, but
what do you think music came from?
it's one of the first songs they ever played together.
It comes
Literally.
from old beat up songs. That's
Right.
That's how you get good.
Yeah.
And this album has a spirit that comes through whether or not you saw the documentary.
Right.
But
You
with
should
that,
see if you haven't seen it.
if you haven't seen it, listen to the album first.
Yeah.
Then go back, watch the thing, and then before you go to bed that next week, because you've been watching this thing, just listen to the album one last time and just marvel at what creativity is about. How do you, with your friends, with your bandmates, even in the darkest hours, find a way to make good music? And that's what happens on this album.
Good morning, the drink is strong, the house is empty, nobody's zoning around. There's an empty page where the clouds belong, working on the last 3 songs. Good morning, how the story goes. Streets are walking manacles beneath their clothes. I found an open field, bluebirds gone, working on my last 3 songs. And the first
water farm while the hero pushes words from his lips. By the drunken river, where the soldiers shiver, we rest beneath the shade of the trees. What we turn girls are saying, each of us a tiny nation. You're just another star with so much. While the world is waiting, we're overwhelmed by some sensation, something long ago, far away. Ooh.